I'm not normally into fantasy films, or fantasy anything really. Game of Thrones lost me after a couple seasons. I like Fallout 3 more than Skyrim. The only thing that grabbed me about The Witcher 3 was Gwent. Lord of the Rings is pretty much the sole fantasy film thing that I can think of that I enjoy, but that's always felt more like an anomaly than a certainty. By now you've probably seen the title of this video and know where this is going, but The Green Knight has changed my opinion on all of that. Let's talk about it. First off, I feel like we should talk about what drew me to watch this film in the first place, since I am staunchly in the fantasy's not my thing camp. It almost felt like Snowfall. I'd see little tidbits here and there of things about the film that I found super interesting. The first was its poster. As some of you may know, my day-to-day job is as a graphic designer, so it takes a little bit for me to be wowed by a movie's poster, and this one definitely did. The stark imagery, the text, the color, everything was great. Then I learned that Dev Patel was the lead. I learned that it was from an acclaimed director. I saw trailers and glimpses of the visuals. I learned that it was from every white 20-something who likes films. Hi. Favorite film production company, A24. What started out as an maybe quickly snowballed into I have to see it, and I'm very glad I did. If you're not aware, The Green Knight is an adaptation of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, a poem of Arthurian legend. I personally knew nothing about the poem going in, but I think it's important to know what the film is based on so we can see how it deviates from its source material. Sir Gawain's purpose is founded by the opening moments of the film. Greeted by the eponymous Green Knight at a Yuletide celebration, Sir Gawain takes up the Dendriform visitor's invitation to an unusual game. That game? Gawain must strike the Green Knight as he sees fit, and come next year's Christmas, he must journey to the Green Chapel, where the Green Knight will return the blow in kind. It is in this moment that we get our first true glimpses of Sir Gawain's character. We learned in the few scenes preceding this that, despite having royal blood, no, not that royal blood, Gawain has yet to do anything of substance with his life, not even enough to regale the king with a story of himself when asked for it. A fact which embarrasses our protagonist. The tree-like creature presents himself in a way to indicate he wishes for beheading, a wish that Gawain dutifully accepts, seeing the opportunity for the legend he so craves quite literally lying at his feet. A moment after the blow, the Green Knight resuscitates, calmly stands back up, grabbing his head and leaving Gawain a simple message. 1 year.
1 year.
Gawain, taken aback, is greeted with cheers of the court. It seems he's now been gifted the opportunity for legend he so craves, but at what cost? Now that we have our motivation, it's time to discuss what I think makes this film so wonderful. The bulk of the film is Gawain's journey to the Green Chapel to meet his fate with this tree-like creature. On this adventure, Dev Patel comes across several Herculean activities, a lens through which not only to view Gawain, but the world around him as well. Between Gawain taking the advice of an eccentric scavenger, played by the wonderfully creepy Barry Keoghan, only to get jumped and left for dead by that scavenger's group, fetching a spirit's remains from a spring, encountering literal giants and more, this film sets the tone for its world beautifully, a fever dream of a fantasy setting. This is part of the film's brilliance, presenting every fate that befalls our hero the same ambiguous way. How much of this is actually happening to Gawain? How common are these things in his world? We experience the bizarre and sudden nature of these tasks the same way Gawain does, and process them similarly. Ambiguity plays a big role in my enjoyment of The Green Knight, but so do the visuals. Even just in the sections I've already mentioned, you could frame 1,000 stills that would be right to hang in most museums that I've been to. The film is breathtaking in its look, seemingly relishing every moment to break the norms of visuals for a film this type. I can't help but draw parallels to a personal favorite of mine, Portrait of a Lady on Fire, that similarly bucked the standard look for a film of its setting for something more interesting and all its own. The most monumental fate to befall our adventurer is once he comes across a lavish castle to be rejuvenated. Within these walls contained another game for Gawain to play. The lord of the house, Joel Edgerton, promises Gawain whatever riches his hunts bring in exchange for Gawain returning whatever he is given in the house back to the Lord. After spending some time recuperating, Gawain is seduced by the Lord's wife, bringing to life the commitment of the Lord's proposal. In the most straightforward sense, this manner's game serves as the perfect parallel to the Green Knights. Both are a way of questioning Gawain's honor, his commitment, and his weaknesses, albeit this one a private affair that contrasts with the wide publicity of his main objective. Further muddying these waters, the Lord's wife and Gawain's back home lover Essel are both played by Alicia Vikander. Could this signify the guilt of lust Gawain has toward the Lord's wife? Could this be a further extension of the dreamlike reality of this world? Is it really as wrong to betray her love if Gawain sees this woman as Essel too? This house deserves its own video just on set design and aesthetic. I've never seen an oasis presented this way and so beautifully, and it makes complete sense why Gawain would both feel safe and want to rest here. Just look at it. After denying the Lord his spoils of the game, Gawain sets off finally to meet the knight. As he does, he realizes he can't go through with the deal, questioning all of what he's done to get here, and runs off. We then see snippets of his life, where he eventually becomes king on the back of the slight deception that is his legend, marrying a woman who resembles the spirit of the spring, only to eventually be overcome by enemy forces and killed anyway. Or so we think. We are now brought back to the Green Chapel, revealing these visions were only Gawain playing out his fate if he were to run, and it seems as if he has accepted the realization that dying a legend is stronger than living off the back of one. He takes off the mystical belt that has kept him protected through the film and accepts his fate. The ending is another extension of the ambiguity this film so perfectly sows, and I'm glad it ends this way. In the poem, the Green Knight commends Gawain for his bravery and allows him to go, but I'm not so sure that's the implication here. The entire film is about choice, how what we do becomes who we are. In some ways, as in the legend of our hero, it's pretty straightforward. In other ways, though, it's more subdued. In the manner, Gawain has shown himself, quite literally on one occasion, and must quickly live the consequences of his actions. This is a more condensed version of his story as a whole, a look into what being great actually takes, even if you lose being good along the way. The story also depicts time in one of the most fascinating ways I've ever seen. A year passes in a moment, 3 days pass in one. The past and future are treated with the same reverence as the present. All of this adds to the incorporeal nature of the world and brings a certain fluidity to its overall makeup. One of the most subtly clever moments in this film is when Gawain is tied up and left for dead by Barry Keoghan's group. For a moment, we are shown a reality where our hero simply doesn't escape this position and he dies there in the forest. For some, this may just be a neat visual effect showing the stakes of his fate, but for me, it's a larger narrative on the stories we tell. If Gawain were to die there in the woods, stripped bare and helpless, would his legend suffer any a different fate than if he were to die to the Green Knight? Could this entire story be the result of the circulation of his legend regardless of the actual outcome? I adore this moment and think it's a masterstroke in getting so much out of so little. I have a feeling The Green Knight is a film that will offer a new nugget of wisdom or complexity or beauty upon each rewatch. Every single element of it seems to have some ascribed meaning, and I will be thankful for all the insight that comes from it every time one of those nuggets falls at my feet.